Hello everybody and welcome to the part 1 batch review of the Jojo Feature Festival, the Golden Wind Feature Festival on Jumputi Heroes. Part 1 is going to be covering the Gacha and part 2 will be the event units. We want to get the Gacha one out relatively early, so hopefully this is going up on the day I said it would. You can see here one of the things we're working on, updating the database, and this is the beta version. And this is a custom sort for release dates. So you can see the characters in release date order, which is useful for videos like this, especially when I miss the cutoff window for them appearing at the top of the database that I set up. So now, don't have to worry about that, but I will be trying to get these videos out a little bit earlier. So we already have translations for some of the event units, but we won't cover them today. We'll cover those in the other video. But if you want to see what they do, it's on the database for Pesci, for Diavolo, for Prosciutto. So, want to see more about them, you can do that. Nothing on Chocolata or Secco yet. They are added at a later date, so they will be added at a later date. Right, starting off where we start off. Giorno Giovanna. People may not have seen my summon video. If you haven't, then check it out. It's on the channel. But long story short, I had him. I knew going in I would get him, and I had him. So let's talk about what I got. Let's talk about what I got for my money. We have a new type of unit, a new special skill, something that we've never had in the game before, that we are referring to as reversal. We've gone with reversal because the description of this skill pretty much matches up with the description of the skill reversal in Pokemon. When I noticed that, I said, look, that's what it's got to be. So that's what it is. Reversal is an interesting skill. I've had some time to play around with it. I've tested a few different stages. A lot of my tests involved comparing Netero, who I would say is probably one of my strongest yellow limiteds as is, against Giorno. I tried to give them both as much benefit as I could without being unfair to one or the other. So in the case of Netero, I was using him on Diavolo stage because Netero does boosted damage to Diavolo. I didn't use Giorno on that stage because that would be unfair. That would give him an unfair advantage because he gets a stat boost, an attack boost from just being on that stage. So, I used him on a different stage. I used him on Byakuran stage. And comparing the damage, basically, what it comes down to is you can potentially do a hell of a lot of damage with Giorno. In very specific situations, you can do way more damage than somebody else. However, in those specific situations, I was significantly limiting what I was doing with the characters. So I got, for Giorno's sake, I got the team HP down really low when I did his test. And when I did Netero's test, I didn't really do anything special. And I even, like, it was a bit unfair because Giorno had some limit break on him, Netero didn't. But to try and make up for that, I used a skill bubble absorb plus boost. And for Giorno, I just used a skill bubble. And I didn't use like a bonus skill bubble that's got more damage or whatever. I'm not saying that bridged the gap, but the difference was so large, it doesn't matter. I think at top damage, Giorno did about 60,000 something, and Netero did about 30 to 40. So obviously, if you could hit the absolute optimal situation where your team is absolute shit because you've done everything you can to get 80,000 HP in your team just so that you can get your from max HP 80 down to less than 1,000 HP just to show the absolute benefit of Giorno. He does a lot of damage in that situation, but big but here, that's without any boosts. Okay, so like if you give him an ultimate attack boost, if you give him an attack boost, it will affect this damage here, or rather in this case this damage here. It doesn't affect this because the damage is based on your HP, it's not based on that. So it's let down in that regard. But we also have to take into account the fact that max HP is slowly creeping up for teams because people are able to limit break characters, and some of the characters with the most HP in the game, sure, there are gacha units with loads of HP. There's also free-to-play units with loads of HP. If you're limit breaking those as well, you could have... I mean, I don't know. If they keep making the level go up and up and up, and people keep limit breaking these free-to-play units, and it keeps going up and up and up, down the line, his damage will continue to creep up. But he's not he's not great optimally. He's not going to be like the best option for most stages. For Diavolo, sure, and for pretty much any stage with Buddy Skill Seal against the blue boss, sure. But generally speaking, it's a weird one. Because unlike these other characters that have like below 50% do this, below 60%, above 80%, whatever, this is like a scale. And you have to get as dangerously close to 1 HP as possible to benefit the most from this damage. And at a certain point, it just kind of becomes counterintuitive to how you play the game. So here's my thing. I don't think Giorno's a bad unit. I think you can do a lot of damage with him, and I think his passive in particular is very strong. Reduces the number of bowls required to create a skill ball by 1. Unconditional. Plus, if you get to max level, 23% ultimate attack damage boost. Unconditional. And he's got the unconditional reducing Buddy Skill Seal by 2. 2 units, not 2 turns. Now, most stages won't Buddy Skill Seal you for free. So he's essentially immune to it. Or as close as you're going to get. So, as a front line, I think he's incredible. However, there is another Gacha room right now. Another limited Gacha room right now. Another Jojo limited Gacha room right now. And if you do 9 multis on that, you get Dio. Who, in my opinion, is just a better unit. He is just a better unit. And if you summon on that, you have a chance to get Josuke, who is incredible, and Jotaro is pretty good. So can I in good conscience say you should spend your 9,000 or 8,250 rubies on Giorno when Dio's Gacha's running at the exact same time? I can't do it. Dio, in my opinion, is just better. And he is available, so I don't know why you wouldn't go for it. Because they're the same type. And Dio is, to me, a lot more versatile. Double tap is like crazy, bro. Double tap is crazy. And Dio falls into a category of units I call the elite. Okay? So I would say double tappers are in the elite. I would say weakeners are in the elite. I would say buffers are in the elite. And we have those 44% weakeners. You only really need 1. Ideally, you'd have 1 for every type, but if you have 1 in most stages where you're trying to do a setup, it doesn't really matter if you have 1 row where you're doing no damage. So you just put them there. They set up the weakening. That 44% is huge, bro. The double tap, you know, it's great in PvP. It's great in PvE. It's just great. And the buffers are universally very good. Giorno is still going to do decent damage because his percentage is just quite high. And he gets additional damage regardless. Like, unless your HP's full, it's still going to do some good additional damage. It's not influenced by attack down and shit like that. It's also not influenced by attack up, but it's very hard for me to categorize Giorno, but he's not a must-have unit. Not for his front line, anyway. A good unit if you have pulled for him. Got some nice animations. For me, not a must-have. As for his buddy skill, very good. Very, very good. If you're in a situation where you're trying to set up a large number of skill bubbles, this is going to make all of them a hell of a lot stronger. Now, you can see that it's got a 15-turn cooldown. There's a reason for that. They only want you to use this once. this is the finale. They don't want you constantly firing this off. That's why the cooldown is so high. I just think it's pretty good. I don't really have a lot to say here, but like, imagine you're in like a Unity battle and you've got like most of the board is skill bubbles, and you drop this. You're going to be doing foul damage. Like, I'm genuinely going to try when the Diavolo Unity battle drops to see how much damage I can do. I'm not going to run Giorno front line. I'm just going to see how much I can do with him on support, because, you know, I'm not one of the fortunate ones. I don't have one of these elite units. I don't have the weakeners. I don't have the double tappers. I don't have the boosters. Actually, I might have one of the boosters. I think I do. I think I have Gintoki. But Giorno, Giorno is as good as he's going to be for that stage. I feel like he's going to be a lot better on support. That's my opinion. So should you summon for Giorno, I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend you go for Dio and hopefully get Josuke or Giorno, or Josuke or Jotaro along the way. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. But I wouldn't. I know I already have, but if I was in your situation and I wasn't just like summoning for the character, I wasn't summoning for the unit, I was summoning for the character. Same thing I do with Yamamoto. It's not a wise way to play the game, but it can be a fun way to play the game. Let's talk about the standard gacha. Let's start off with Bruno. Bruno Bucciarati. Now, he is a very good unit. But in the sense that he's just kind of what we've come to expect of a standard gacha unit. He inflicts damage and he boosts ultimate attack damage, which makes him kind of good as like a last hitter. Potentially doing you some pretty decent damage. He's boosted himself and he's doing some good damage. His passive reduced the number of turns of weakening for this unit and unconditional attack boost. We've come to expect units to have stuff like reduced turns of weakening, because there are going to be stages where you're going to look in your box of like 400 and something, 500 and something units, and you're like, God, do I have anybody that does that? And luckily, a lot of the standard gacha units have been picking up immunities and reductions recently. So if you didn't pull one from the 2019 batch at some point, you might have pulled one from the 2020 batch and now fill that slot. Again, it's good. The absence of it would be bad, but it's what we've come to expect of standard gacha units, really. The ultimate attack maybe letting him down a little bit on the front line because he can be a good hitter, but I mean, unless you're buffing the whole team or you lose additional damage or something, like I think it is just a tiny bit limiting. Especially seeing as these units compared to like a Livy, generally speaking, you wouldn't be investing jewels in. But you know, down the line you're gonna get dupes of him from like gacha tickets next year and whatever, so these 15% buffs can be doing a lot of damage. It's pretty good. His buddy skill. Convert 1 green to a skill, absorb that skill, or absorb a skill from this unit's buddy, and for 3 turns, boost the recovery and ultimate attack damage of red team members. Now this might sound familiar, or at least it should. It should. This is the red version of Crocodile, or Fullbring Ichigo, or Kamui, aka this is the final member of this archetype, and he is, I mean, I don't really need to say what I haven't already said. He's very usable, and especially if you don't have Mario Leona, he can fill that role for you as your red character that absorbs specials. Not that you necessarily need one for every color. In a lot of situations where you can use them, it doesn't really matter which one you use, but it's nice to have the type advantage, get a bit more stats, you know. And in this case, he's boosting ultimate attack damage as well and recovery, so you're getting the benefit of that by having him as the same type as the rest of your team. All in all, I've got to say that as much as I do think he's kind of like a standard unit from the standard gacha, he's strong. He's strong. He is a good unit. So it's not bad if you pulled him. And hey, I pulled him. So that's great. Guido Mister. A character I wanted to pull, a character I did not pull. Mister is a quality unit. He basically, throughout his ultimate attack and passive, has like 3 different kinds of stages he could be useful for, and his support is interesting. His support is interesting. His ultimate attack ignores guard and does boosted damage to tanks. So while yes, it might be rare that both of those things are useful at the same time, that can happen. But as long as he's doing one or the other, you're getting some benefit of having him over somebody else. And he also has a passive which reduces poison, which again, poison is like not as used. I'm wondering, because we have had a few more units that inflict poison and like reduce poison damage and stuff recently, so maybe it's gonna have a bit of a comeback. But I've fought that a few times with a few different like elemental damages and stuff, and it's not really gone anywhere. So I don't know, but maybe if we do get like a poison boss that's, I mean, what colour is Mr. Green? If we get a yellow poison boss, he might be good. He'd be good for that. He'd be good for that. I just don't think poison's as common as some of the other damages or damage types or things, inflictions and whatever. So a little bit disappointed in that regard, but unconditional ultimate attack damage boost is obviously very nice. Now his buddy skill, he is part of a new archetype, a double buddy attack booster. This is very odd. He gives a little bit of conversion. So, not conversion, sorry. He bursts a few bubbles, up to 7 yellow. That's quite nice. And he will boost the attack of his buddy for 4 turns, and then he'll boost it again for 4 turns by a slightly smaller amount. Well, actually, quite a lot smaller amount. Now, the reason for this, I assume, is because PvP is starting to see more people using attack up removers in support, and now he's gonna have a way to counter that because he's got 2 layers of attack up on top of any other attack boost that he has. And I think there's some limiteds and stuff that also remove attack up, so he'll be good against them as well. It's all it's a bit weird because it's not really what you'd think about when you're trying to build a team, in my opinion. But I guess some people are thinking about it, otherwise they wouldn't have added it to the game. Really, it's like a really weird way to defend against that. It's like an attack up and attack up. But I guess it works. Like, you know, 22% still pretty good. So I don't know. I don't know how useful these units are going to be. But potentially PvP, they do see some use. And if they don't remove your attack up, that is a 79% attack boost. That's crazy. So I look forward to seeing those be spammed in PvP. That would be fun. Let's move on to Abacio. Abacio is a pretty quality unit. Similarly to Mista, he has about 3 different kinds of stages he could be useful on. His ultimate attack ignores damage reduction, just as Mista ignores guard, and he does boosted damage to DPS, just as Mista did boosted damage to tanks. So, kind of similar thing, pretty much what you'd expect. And his passive skill, buddy skill seal reduction. This is very good. There's not enough units that are doing this and doing it with like modern levels of damage. Abacio is very nice for the Diavolo stage. If you don't have him, like me, if you don't have him and you don't have Giorno, then that stage is still beatable, but it is made a lot easier if you do have them. And unconditional attack boost, obviously, very nice. His buddy skill, he is basically a yellow version of Camus, who we talked about from the Saint Seiya event. From what I understand, this is proving to be quite a troublesome addition to PvP. A lot of supports now being added that are like good in PvP, and it all comes together to people just spamming multiple of the same archetype until it's just like, you're fucked. So potentially if you've got him and Camus, we're talking, I don't know how that stacks, but it's like 2 lots of 35,000 damage reduction in PvP, plus you're not losing out on creating skill bubbles and converting bubbles on the board to be more useful. So it's kind of outrageous. These supports are getting outrageous. But yeah, he's going to see a lot of use in PvP, I think. And like I said, useful in about 3 different kinds of ways for his front line. Not bad. However, the next unit I want to talk about, Pt.5 Fugo. This is an example of a unit that I am not a fan of at all. I see very little upside in Fugo, which is a shame because I know there are fans of Fugo out there who would have wanted him to be quite good, and he could have been like an additional support for poison that we needed, or he could have been like additional damage to poison or something. Instead, he inflicts poison, and to be fair, he probably does some pretty good damage with the poison, damage plus poison. But it's just poison still, to me, seems like really under-supported. I feel like there's other ways to get benefits out of stuff like burn that there isn't with poison. And like, even if he's gonna do like a good amount of damage, I don't really like it as a front line for a standard gacha. Plus you're missing out on like boosted damage to whatever, or bypass whatever, or or boost teammates whatever. He's gonna poison, he's gonna inflict a not great amount of damage, and he's gonna boost his own attack. It's, I don't know. I don't personally see many uses for it for me. I can't really see it taking off that much. If we had like loads of characters that inflict poison, poison limited and stuff, and you can like have a little bit of fun with some poisoning teams, poison weakening, whatever. But he's not gonna do that. He's not gonna do that. So his passive skill, unconditional attack boost, and converts bubbles, hearts to blue. Conversion is nice, but there's an absence of immunities, there's an absence of reductions, resistances. He's pretty good probably as like an all-purpose damager in like any given team, but if the stage has any debuffs, he's not really bringing anything to the table, I don't think. So a little bit of a letdown as a front line. His buddy skill, however, he is part of the same archetype as Mr. So again, PvP, people are going to be spamming the same archetype. People might be spamming him and Mr. together, and it could be kind of mad. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like PvP buddy skill, that's like the thing that stands out for him. Beyond that, I'm not a fan of him as a unit. I'm really not. And last but not least, we have Narencia. And Narencia is a pretty nice unit. He is a pretty nice unit. Recovery-based damage is... it has its ups and downs. I would say recovery still doesn't really have that much going for it compared to standard attack damage. It does have its upsides, you know, because it's not affected by attack down, and you know, boosted recovery means boosted healing as well. It can be quite nice. But, you know, there's nothing good. Like I said before, the Mister and the Fugo, if you've got those two and you're spamming those, between them, they're giving like 70 something attack up each. There's nothing like that for recovery based damage. That being said, I'm not sure you'd want to use the Narencia as like a damager in PvP. I definitely wouldn't, but it would be nice. It would be nice if the recovery had a bit more support. It is still affected by ultimate attack up, however, and Narencia is a booster for 2 types, red and green. It's not by a very high percentage, but you know what? It's not bad. It's not bad at all. He's given a little bit of buff to a whole team, red and green, and recovery based damage, which gives you some bypass, some little workarounds on what your opponent's doing. His passive converts 1 block to a red and boosts this unit's recovery by 8%. Kind of has the same downside as Fugo's. Arguably block bubble conversion's better. I don't know. Boosters and recovery instead of attack or ultimate attack, which makes sense. And the buddy skill. Now this buddy skill is basically a Cyclone version of Shaka. So would they be the same archetype? Not really, kind of. But it was nice on Shaka and it's nice on him because yes, it gets rid of Cyclone, which is very good, but you're also getting the benefit of a skill bubble and some bubble conversion. So even if you're not removing a Cyclone, it's still a good support. All in all, I would say out of the batch, Fugo is undoubtedly, in my eyes, the weakest. But I think a lot of people will see him as desirable for that PvP support. I know Mr. has it as well, but if you're going to the top in PvP, I mean, I don't know this for sure, you might want both. I'm not like a hard PvP player, but to me, just do basic maths here. 79% attack up and 79% attack up. That seems like a lot to have for 4 turns. 4 turns. But for general use, I mean, I don't know. I think Bruno is a good one to have in your pocket. Mr. Abacio, Narencia less so, but I think he still has his strengths, and Fugo even less so. But that PvP support potentially bringing him up a notch for some players, definitely for PvP players. All in all, not a bad batch. A little bit on the smaller side, I would say. Like I think it is still just like the 10 or 11 units we normally get. I guess it just feels different because we've got the 5 standard gacha units and there's no protagonist among those. But I get it. It's Passione. It's the whole gang. So we'll end the video there and we'll review the event units later. And I'm going to do a Jojo Starter Shooters video. Probably tomorrow, maybe the day after. Probably tomorrow. And updates to the database are coming. As you can see, I'm working on it. It's still in the basic phase. Some of the CSS stuff hasn't been put in yet, but one of many features we are working on. More to come. And yeah, see you guys next time.